In today's video, we're going to be diving into the upcoming pattern, taking a look at an East Coast tropical threat, as well as another potential threat somewhere near the East Coast, potentially the Gulf as well. We're going to be diving into some big time temperature changes as things have been quite warm. We do expect some big time cooldowns to close out the month of September and even beyond into October, which is looking quite cool. There is other storms happening around the nation, and we will break down all of these things. Now, before we dive into things, be sure to check out Prestige Weather, where we're going to be doing a 99 cent for your first month deal once more. It's only $5 typically, but we're doing only $1 for your first month. That's an automatic discount, so you don't even need to put a code in. We're doing a September photo contest in there where the winner receives $50, so be sure to check that out, as well as our second winter forecast, which is now officially available within Prestige Weather today. So be sure to check out all of that on your top right corner of your screen below this video and get signed up today at that killer price. Let's go ahead and dive into things and take a look here at the past 7 days of temperature anomalies. And still, as you can see, this second week now of September, we see the full picture of the second week of September featured below normal temperatures for a lot of the South Central, as we predicted, and for the Southeast here, as you can see, as well as the Ohio Valley and the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic here. All of these regions ended up being cooler for that second week of September. Quite warm along the west, although it was a lot closer to normal. We'll put a small positive there, but it was a lot closer to normal. Much, much warmer than what's typical here over the past week for South Central Canada and the North Central United States. That's where a lot of our warmest temperatures compared to normal were at. As we take a look overall at the first 14 days of September, so this is the full week 1 and 2 on screen here, it looked very similar. South Central through a lot of the east were below normal temperatures here. Again, we were predicting this early September cooler pattern for weeks ahead of time, and this ended up taking place. Again, a lot of you probably expected things to be cooler than this. Falsely. It obviously was never going to be like wintertime temperatures, of course, but this was a significant cool down. Arctic blasts, I think there was about 2 Arctic blasts, really. Arctic air masses up in northern Canada within the Arctic Circle blasting down into the eastern states like this were common here over the last few weeks. We do see that overall the west and again central regions of Canada as well as the north central states were all above normal here. Very, very warm compared to what's typical throughout all of these regions. Now, the precipitation, this is also over the last 7 days. We did have a pretty active pattern across the northwest, through the northern Rockies and into the northern plains. And we did have a tropical cyclone in the form of Hurricane Francine there for the deeper south. And we also saw some tropical downpours for Florida and southern Georgia there. But a lot of areas throughout the South Central, North Central, Northeast and Mid-Atlantic were below normal as far as precipitation is concerned. Let's go ahead and dive into the upcoming pattern. We're going to be keeping all of our eyes really on this area that should form into some low pressure here off the southeast coast. And really, there's a lot of variables. This could head directly west towards more South Carolina. This could head directly north towards coastal Virginia and North Carolina, or somewhere in between. And really, we're watching all of these potential solutions. And really, the main thing that would be impacted by this is the areas being impacted, of course. But not only that, the timing could really change based on those factors. Let's take a look at tomorrow afternoon, and what we see is some low pressure trying to form somewhere between offshore of Georgia and South Carolina there. There is already plenty of precipitation around for these areas throughout the southeast and some of the deeper south there. Our jet stream overall is a little bit of a trough along the west with mostly a ridge here over the central states, a little bit more neutral for the east here. So we see these warm temperatures really rising up throughout a lot of these central states, with cooler air sinking along the west coast. This is also bringing plenty of storms here for the northwest, where they just had above average precipitation. There might be more of that on the way. Now, as we head towards Monday on September 16th here, we do see a 1,006 millibar low pressure center nearby the coast of South Carolina. We're seeing heavy precipitation and probably some pretty decent winds for South Carolina, North Carolina, maybe even Southeast Virginia here by Monday at about 5 p.m. We do see still some precipitation throughout the south, deep south, I would say. We do see for a lot of the north central into the upper Midwest, some storms are around. It's pretty sporadic, but they are around. And then out west, especially the mountainous west here, we are seeing major storms due to a stronger low over Utah. Even some snowfall here for some of the Rockies and Sierra Nevada mountains are occurring. By Tuesday on September 17th, we see our tropical low of sorts between South and North Carolina there, bringing heavy precipitation to a lot of the southeast and mid-Atlantic here. Again, we briefly touched on this yesterday. Maybe I wouldn't even say briefly, but definitely the impacts aren't going to vary too much with this storm based on intensity. Of course, your winds will get stronger if that storm is stronger, but I don't want people to think if this isn't a tropical storm that it's not going to bring heavy flooding chances or, even strong winds. Of course, they would be stronger, but this storm is looking to be a huge rainmaker regardless, and that shouldn't change too much whether it's just a tropical cyclone, tropical depression, tropical storm. This storm will feature heavy rainfall to a very dry area, which, as we talked about yesterday, really leads towards the ground not accepting that rain. It likes to just kind of sit on top of it, which can create a lot of flooding implications, and I do expect that to be possible throughout the southeast and mid-Atlantic here. We continue to see some pretty major storms here throughout the west. Our trough kind of expands as the jet stream is doing something like this. So we see a big ridge for the plains, big trough down the western states here, and this is allowing for some snowfall in the Rockies once again. Pretty exclusive to the high elevations, but it is there. For Wednesday on September 18th here, we are seeing that there is a major storm across the south central states. As you can see, this is the same one that was over the Rockies, so it's moved northward here to south central Canada. Our tropical low is somewhere between Virginia and North Carolina there, still bringing some heavy rainfall by Wednesday. We're still seeing some major storminess due to a weaker low in Canada and also, or California better yet, and a stronger low in Canada. This is bringing rainfall throughout the west and also snowfall still to the Sierra Nevada mountains. That's definitely something that we're watching for here. We're getting some very early season snowfall there. Thursday on September 19th, we're seeing heavy rainfall throughout the mid-Atlantic and southeast. Still getting some snowfall and rainfall throughout the Rockies and Sierra Nevada, although it has started to die down. Your jet stream still ridging over the central states and troughing here over the west pretty significantly. So cold along the west, warm along those central states, and a lot more neutral here along the east. Friday on September 20th, we see a 1,004 millibar low pressure system between the states of Colorado, Kansas, and Nebraska here. We do see snowfall back for the Rockies due to this system. We see a lot of thunderstorms out ahead of it for South Dakota, Nebraska, Kansas, and even underneath it for New Mexico, Texas, Oklahoma. Definitely going to be a factor there, and this should be a heavy rainmaker for all of these lower elevation areas. Still rainfall from the remnants of whatever this cyclone is that hits Virginia and North Carolina. So again, days of rainfall ahead, potential flooding is on the way. Now for Saturday on September 21st, we have a decent low over south central Canada, a very intense cold front setting up to the south of it, even reaching as far south as Mexico. We can see a warm front here, so we see really surging warmth out ahead of this, which is very typical. We see a far stretching, very impactful cold front being kind of the frontal boundary that is leading the charge of this cold air into the east. Very intense setup, and this is exactly why I've always said that a weaker low doesn't always mean weaker impacts. We're seeing a weaker low here with very major impacts due to that cold front. We could experience some severe weather along this frontal boundary for specific locations, but not only that, this should be a big time wind event regardless for all of the areas impacted here with just this intense of a cold front, and it should bring pretty heavy rainfall to areas that have been needing it, especially here in the northern plains and upper Midwest. As we move this towards Sunday, we do see the progression here. Your low somewhere up here closer to the Hudson Bay, warm front along that Hudson Bay, and then cold front, lower precipitation by this point, but still very far stretching as it's again leading the charge of this cold air eastward. We see warm air surging up northward through the deeper south into the Midwest, Great Lakes, and even into central Canada regions here. very, very intensive. We still have some backdoor cold able to make its way along the East Coast, so I suspect the next week ahead will feature mostly below normal temperatures for a lot of the East Coast here, where we are seeing an increase in storminess, by the way. By the time we reach Monday on the 23rd, here's that cold front. We see a ridge developing out west, so your jet stream is doing something like this. Warmer air is now reaching the east for the most part. Also, along the west coast, we're seeing some warmer air able to influence things. And overall, this cooler air is moving into this trough, moving eastward for the most part. That is your setup here. By the time we reach Tuesday, it progresses even further eastward. And we're seeing it, again, lower precipitation, but something like this. This colder air is on the move without a doubt, with warmer air surging out ahead of it, as we tend to see. Now, this warmer air building along the west is a big story because this could be a positive PNA that could really be the influencing factor that is bringing this colder air towards the east. Definitely something we've been tracking. Total precipitation here shows that a lot of the Rockies and the plains are dealing with above normal precipitation, and you can take that northward into Canada as well, where we're also seeing above average precipitation. The deeper south into the southeast and even mid-Atlantic, also seeing above average precipitation here. So let's take a look at it. Well, let's take a look at it here. I keep doing that. We see above average precipitation throughout all of these green areas, even some significantly above average precipitation for areas throughout Alberta, Saskatchewan, Montana there, and then even states like South Dakota, Nebraska, and Kansas here, where we're getting those darker blues indicating multiple inches above average. And for the deeper south, we have some above average precipitation, but not only that, this area impacted by our coastal storm is going to be dealing with far above average precipitation as well. Again, the blues are going to be about 2 to 5 inches above average over the next 15 days. So definitely a huge turn in the opposite direction here, where we're now expecting massive amounts for portions of the mid-Atlantic and southeast here. Now, for the snowfall, as you can see, we are dealing with some snowfall. Anything from kind of a dusting up to a few inches is expected for a lot of these areas. The Canadian Rockies here could experience, I would say, over 10 inches. And same story for some of these mountains between Utah and Wyoming. And then the Sierra Nevada as well could be in for 10 inches plus, maybe even a foot plus for some of these mountain ranges. As we zoom in here, we see these brighter pinks for Nevada, Utah, Wyoming here. Definitely going to be indicative of potentially a foot plus, and then these purples are going to be indicative of 6 to 10 inches, although I wouldn't doubt it that there's some higher elevation areas and they're seeing even more than this. Definitely continuing to see this snowfall, and I doubt that we're going to stop seeing this until about May or June of next year, so we are pretty much locked in with these snowfall amounts in the videos until that point. Temperature anomalies, warmer in the east, like I said, with the exception of the East Coast where we stay kind of cool. You can see these blues and greens kind of sticking around here for the East Coast. The west is highly below normal as far as temperatures are concerned. And then we have this warm surge throughout the central states and even central provinces of Canada there. That's by the 19th, and we're really going to stick with this trend. Still, East Coast is cold, but really what's interesting here is we see this warm up along the west. Again, right around hours 200, we see a positive PNA trying to take place. This cooler air is trying to move eastward desperately, and we're seeing these areas that were very warm suddenly cooling. As we keep going, look at this cool down moving into the east. Very, very significant. Warmer air really prevalent throughout the west. And this could be setting the tone for, as we move into October, really seeing some cooler temperatures. Look at that Arctic blast. It doesn't really reach the East Coast. I'm kind of doubtful about that because of how cool things have been. It would take a lot for us to turn around and see kind of the opposite here, which would be warmer along the East Coast with cooler inland. Especially when we have this significant of a positive PNA, and not only that, a far east stretching positive PNA would lead me towards seeing a far east reaching trough as well, but we're not seeing that come together here. Only time will tell, but really we end up seeing another more minor cold front, I would say, and then another minor cold front, maybe a moderate cold front moving through. The reason I'm not calling these Arctic blasts is because these ones are not originating from the Arctic Circle. They're actually just coming from the southern Canada areas and blasting down. So there is a key difference there. But this could spell more cooldowns on the way, especially if they're more significant than what this GFS model is showing. But it looks a lot more promising than the next 7 to 10 days do. once we kind of move beyond that 25th time frame especially. But after the 20th is looking quite interesting. 5-day increments here. Here's the 15th through the 20th. Here's the 20th through the 25th. And then here's the 25th through the 30th. Our long-range model guidance suggesting below normal temperatures throughout much of the central and eastern states here is going to be likely for that ending period of September. Here's the 30th of September through the 5th of October, and we kind of continue in that direction with your average temperatures also coming down by the time we're reaching about 2 weeks from now. This is going to be very, very significant. Definitely bringing about the first 60s and 50s for some folks if this does take place in this way. The 5th through the 10th looks pretty similar, and then the 10th through the 15th maybe even cooler for the East Coast. Here's the 15th through the 20th, a little less cold, but we actually move back in that colder direction for the 20th through the 25th. And then finally the 24th through the 29th, which we can't get to the 25th, the 30th time frame, unfortunately. We do actually see some warmer air trending in finally for the east, maybe for the end of October, but again, that's very far out, to take it with a grain of salt. The next 30 days overall look such as this. We really see cooler temperatures along the west. We see warmer temperatures mostly for the Rockies into the plains, and then another pocket of below normal temperatures along a lot of the east here. Very interesting. Now, as we take a look at this European AI model, we do see that storm system striking into the mid-Atlantic and southeast area there before basically lifting off. We do get another threat here, as I mentioned earlier, somewhere near the east coast. This particular model has it sticking around the Bahamas here, but this could easily be a threat up the east coast if it does develop. And we've seen this model trend this storm in multiple times here, so wouldn't doubt it one bit. Now, for the National Hurricane Center outlook here, we've kind of lost a lot of areas of invest and overall interest. But we do have this area off the East Coast, which is now a 40% chance of development over the next 48 hours and a 50% chance over the next 7 days. So we've seen this kind of get bumped, especially in the next 48 hours. But that 7-day outlook has increased by 10%. So now we're at the flip of a coin as far as this one becoming a depression or tropical storm. So odds are increasing. And then we have Tropical Storm Gordon. Let's take a look at it. This one is expected to drop back down to tropical depression status before becoming a tropical storm again on Wednesday and basically curving straight to the north. So if all things go as expected, this should just be a fish storm. And what I mean by that is, well, no land impacted, really, just fish. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. We do upload every single day. Be sure to subscribe. You can even hit the bell icon for daily notifications when we upload so you never miss one. Be sure to like the video if you did enjoy it. Leave a comment down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.